the same
Z,
source.
ZNAU, among other things, the requirements. Oh, we were looking at this before the stream started, or before the recording started, rather. We're not streaming this. Among other things, requirements involve changing Constitution of Ukraine. So,
Take away your arm, because it's usually harder to hear if you
oh, okay, yeah.
have your mouth covered.
You can just let me know. I mean,
Yeah.
so, although I'm probably not going to, it's lazy. Refusal to move to NATO, neutral status of. Oh, wow, this translation is worse than the other one. So the first thing, they don't want them to be in NATO, and they want neutral status between Ukraine and Russia. So this translation is really rough. Did you guys find another translation of this, or is the one that you put in chat just the same?
Which
The requirements. Danny, I believe this is you that put this in here. Yeah. Okay. So refusal to be in NATO. Yeah. So this just appears to be bad translation, but yeah. So refusal to enter NATO. Another thing, just when you're at home and you're doing these auto translates, look for synonyms. So like move to NATO probably is a translation of something. Here, let's actually switch this over. Is it up here?
Yep. That one should be able to switch
Russian.
back to Russian.
Yeah. So do you want to just go ahead and try and translate this correctly?
Yeah, it's basically saying that I believe this is Russia saying giving like conditions, basically saying like, yeah, you're not gonna join NATO. That Ukraine is gonna be a neutral state.
Neutral state, and I've heard that come up in other things in the past, where it's essentially to be neutral. In what they're saying, neutral means essentially what's the term for it?
Basically saying you're not gonna attack us.
Satellite state or a vassal or whatever.
Yeah, I believe the last one, ним из гарантов, которого готова стать напавшая на нашу страну Россия. Yeah, they're basically saying like you're gonna be a neutral country that's not going to attack on us.
Okay, so that's one, or is that?
That's just number one. Then he's talking about the Russian language. Второе государственное. So basically saying that the Russian language is going to be like a second language.
Okay, so
basically removing all laws that prevent people from using Russian as a second language. Which personally, I don't think there are.
You don't think there's any?
I don't think there are any specific ones because I have family that like we spoke Russian back there, and we know a lot of people that spoke a lot of Russian. So
That's
and it wasn't shunned upon.
If you guys want to look up, just to see if you can find anything on sort of banning on like speaking Russian as a second language in Ukraine, see if there's anything that. I mean, the thing with this is like, and I think I saw this as we get further into here. A lot of these claims that he's making are that Russia is making here are pretty unfounded. But it's always worth looking into. So this third point here.
And the third point is basically admitting that Crimea is a Russian territory or part of Russia.
Yeah.
Then number 4 is признание Украины независимости ДНР в административных границах области, включая контролируемые Украиной территории. I don't quite know what they mean, but from what I can tell, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but basically turnover of any territories that might belong to Ukraine.
Let me switch over to the English just to see if there's something we're missing.
Recognition by Ukraine of the independence of the DPR and are within the administrative boundaries of their regions, including territories not controlled by Ukraine. Yeah, I don't know what the acronyms.
1 second, guys. All right, so recognition of Crimea as Russian. This third one
Fourth one.
Fourth one, yeah, sorry. Um,
Yeah, I don't quite know what the DPR and LPR stand for. Let's see. Okay, so it's two different republics.
oh, okay, they're separatist regions of Ukraine.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Daniel. Um,
The administrative boundary. So
yeah,
it's basic.
so that there are separatists who are pro-Russia in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that probably is in reference to those political parties. Um, yeah, just for context, if anyone basically you haven't lived in Ukraine in
I
quite
haven't
some
lived there
time.
for over a decade, slightly over a decade.
Yeah. So it's and I didn't really study much on Ukraine. This is I say with journalism, so I tend to think fast, ignore the dogs barking in the background. That just happens. Um, I, the the one that I was most interested in, at least confused by, because I've heard a lot of this come out, is denazification, prohibition of the activities of ultranationalists, Nazis, neo-Nazis, parties, public organizations, abolition of glorification of Nazis, and I wanted to switch this just over to Russian just to see if there's anything weird with this that
Yeah,
is just a misprint translation.
yeah, I've read similar stuff to this before, and that's like one thing I can't quite agree with is like, how do you attack a country that you claim is like basically Nazis,
Yeah,
while attacking a bunch of civilians, and then they're standing up for the country. The president's heavily supported by the citizens.
he's
All the
also
other
the
countries are supporting the.
yeah the president's also, I believe, he's from two. I don't know if he's Jewish himself, but his parents are both Jewish as well. So
Yeah, I
I think
believe I've read that like uh, maybe like grandparents or something like that were actually survivors, Jewish survivors during World War II. So like,
the this is all, yeah, and so this has been a pretty common thing, at least that I've seen in a lot of these Putin's kind of claims on Ukraine. Is he? And I do know I have seen a lot of information on the fact that they have a far right white nationalist, essentially neo-Nazi party in Ukraine, but I think Putin and the Russian government here is really trying to make that claim as though it is the whole of Ukraine, or even
majority.
even less than a majority. It's an extreme minority. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I
he's
don't
trying
have
to make it a claim
yeah
that majority of Ukrainians are
yeah.
neo-Nazis. Next
But
one's actually a quite interesting one. You might want to turn into
turn it to English.
English so you can read through it as well. But yeah,
Demilitarization of Ukraine, a complete rejection of offensive weapons, under which, if desired, any type of weapons can be brought.
yeah. From what I can understand,
Yeah,
it's basically saying that okay, you're gonna get rid of your entire military, which Ukraine didn't have that strong of a military to start with.
yeah,
Let's be honest, a lot of civilians had to pick up weapons, soccer players, musicians, wrestlers, they, even people that didn't live in Ukraine and were different occupations and went back to Ukraine to pick up weapons. It's Russia. So they're talking about demilitarization of Ukraine and taking away all weapons. And from what I can understand, the last portion, any type of weapons can be brought, is in a sense saying that if you need weapons, Russia will supply it, but
mm-hmm.
only if they allow it in a sense.
All right, so essentially allowing Russia to control their military. All right, so
Kind of ties in with, I believe, the fourth one, or
uh,
or it was the
yeah,
first one.
yeah,
It was the first one
the
as well.
first one, so the neutrality clause. Yeah, so essentially to break this down, we have neutrality on issues, which is essentially neutrality towards Russia, not neutrality in general. I mean, they have essentially allowing Russia to take actions elsewhere without Ukraine responding. not joining NATO, which has been a big issue. Russian uh, is the second state. Okay, so is it saying Russian is an official language of the state
Yeah, second state language.
here? Okay. The abolition of all laws that infringe on that. So okay. So I'm assuming the state language is Ukrainian or some dialect of Ukrainian.
Yeah, it is
Uh,
Ukrainian, but it's like again, a lot of people in Ukraine speak Russian, so there really isn't really big deal behind it.
and then the recognition of the satellite states, obviously have territories, and then denazification, which we covered, that's kind of a baseless claim, or at least most of a baseless claim, and then demilitarization, so essentially not allowing them to have the ability to defend themselves with anything other than Russia. Let's move on to the next link.